Okay, today we're at the Rebecca Furnace ore mines. Rebecca Furnace was built in 1817 and operated till about 1882. And they got their iron ore not far from their furnace at the Rebecca ore mines. And here's the map of Rebecca ore mines, and today we're going to check it out. This is on my friend Justin Hoover's property here in Martinsburg, and we have a mine here. Here. This looks like an underground shaft, mine shaft. Then we come over to a larger outcropping of iron ore. There's a pit here, and this marking must have been another shaft. Now, it said they did open cut mining here and underground work as well. They would go down in mine shafts. A lot of it was open cut, though. So we'll go check out these iron mines. Okay, here's the large geology map here from Rebecca Furnace. We're here between Fredericksburg and Beavertown, which is down Clover Creek. And right here is where we're going to be researching today. There's a Rebecca Furnace, and they would get their mine over here, their iron ore over here at the Rebecca ore mines. And these are the mines we'll be checking out today. Here, there's one here, here, and here. So we're going to go check them out. Okay, we're at the first ore main open cut here at the Rebecca Furnace mines. This property is at the end of Claybank Road, and if we would go straight that way, we'd run out to Ormenia. But a lot of brown hematite and the precious white clay ran this ridge from Ridge Road all the way down here to Claybank. So a lot of the same mining was going on from iron ore to clay. But this is a beautiful pond today, a recreation pond. But at one time, this was mined for iron ore rock for Rebecca Furnace and Fredericksburg. Peter Shoenberger owned all this property, and they would mine their iron ore rock here and take it to the furnace to smelt to make pig iron. But this is one former iron ore mining site here, and we'll go that way. We'll find 2 or 3 more. Here's one area that was mined out for iron ore. It's not deep at all. It's this cut here. Not very deep, but they did take iron ore from here. And over there is where we've seen some possible tunnel shaft mines. Here's another big open hole here. This must have been a test hole where they were digging just to see what was under the ground here. Okay, I think we figured this out here. We're standing right on a drift mine. This is a spoil pile I'm standing on top of here. You see it's built up down here. And the mine is straight into there. You can see where they started the tunnel right beside here. And they would tunnel into the hillside here. So the mine entrance is right there underneath that tree. And I can see some holes up in there from erosion and caving in. But this was pushed shut. And Justin and I talked about a long time ago, a guy went inside this mine and he never knew where it was. But I think we found it. Doesn't look like much now, but you can see there's like a hole down in there. And you see this clay here dug. There's some holes here in the ground, but I believe the mine was right here. I know this could look like a normal groundhog hole. You got one there. You got one here. One here. And there's one here. But I think the ground's just kind of settling here. And I think the mine was right here. And they came in here at this cut right here. So you see the spoil pile? Beginning of the tunnel shaft, the drift mine drifted right into the hillside. So they were taking iron ore right out of right here. So that's another neat discovery here. One more documented drift mine, iron ore, 65% graded iron ore from Rebecca Furnace Mines. Okay, we're down another site, the Rebecca Furnace mined their iron ore. Here's another larger mining site. You can see all the dips and cuts. Here's the spoil piles. They started mining here in 1817. So that's offhand 230 years ago, 220. It's impressive. When they mined iron ore, they would run into a lot of springs, and the areas would fill up with water. A lot of the iron ore they would find right here on the surface, and they cleaned it up very well. You don't find a whole lot of it laying around, but you can see they're mining down in here too. Pretty big cut. They were mining all the way over to here, and this is filled in with some really sticky clay. It's, wouldn't want to walk out in there. It's probably like a quicksand. But yeah, a lot of 220 years ago they were mining this for iron ore rock. There's some quality brown hematite iron ore rock. And here's some over here. Here's a nice hole right here. It's either a test hole or a vertical shaft. They had multiple shafts that went down about 100 foot where they were mining straight down. So hard to say. This is an old roadway which they would have taken mules and wagons through here to get their iron ore, and they would have followed this road system up between the mining sites here. Right now we're looking for a mine that's on the map. It's a mine shaft. We're going to head this way. Okay, so we're standing in the area that we think they were going underground around the Rebecca Furnace Mine number 2. And on this section on the map it showed shaft mines, which this is over 200 years ago. So the main cut's over there. South of the cut was where they were doing the mines. So over here, there's a spot that comes in here. It's very small. And we think that this is possibly an underground shaft right here, this impression. And they would go underground here. And basically they would go down, according to the map, about 100 feet. So on the top of the surface here where they were mining the iron ore up top was they would go so far down, and they would have iron ore. Between the iron ore and underneath the iron ore was a white silica clay. Underneath the white silica clay, going down about 80 feet or more, was more iron ore. So if they would go underground, they would get to that iron ore, and they extracted a lot of iron ore underneath the ground here. So I think this was a shaft right here, and they went underground very deep to get the iron ore. There might have been a couple spots around here where they went underground. And over here, they would dig this out for iron ore. They would go down so deep, maybe 20, 30 feet, get iron ore till they hit that white clay. And then going down an additional 20, 30, 40 feet, they would run into iron ore again. So that's why they would go underground to get it. So they were really doing whatever they could to extract this iron ore. They took as much as they can. And this site, you don't see a lot of iron ore laying around. It's been cleaned up very well. So they mined for about 60 years in this spot. And then for Rebecca Furnace. And eventually they would move over to Millerstown and Henrietta towards the end of Rebecca Furnace's smelting days. Here comes Justin to pick me up. I'll go heading that way. Here's a picture of Rebecca Furnace, early 1900s, when it was being dismantled. This iron furnace operated from 1817 till 1882. And this furnace was owned and operated by the Iron King Peter Shoenberger. This property here is where the furnace would have sat today, behind the Stauffer farm over on Rebecca Furnace Road. Slag can be found all around the property, reminding us of the smelting days. Edward Lytle would operate the furnace for his father-in-law, Peter Shoenberger. Edward would marry his daughter, Elizabeth. Ironically, this furnace was named after Peter Shoenberger's other daughter, Rebecca. Rebecca Furnace sure had an incredible history here in the Cove. And now we'll go back and check out some more of the Rebecca ore mines. So, large open cut. Rebecca Furnace, this is their largest mining site, so they took a lot of iron ore out of here. And it goes out through here to a big open cut. Okay, we're on the property line right here, but you can see over here the huge open cut here where they mined. They started mining out iron ore here, and eventually they would take, later on, General Refractories came back and started mining this precious clay, which it's a white clay, which is very abundant. You can see the top of the line, how it comes the whole way across here. So this is a huge pit. So after the iron industry and Rebecca Furnace was done taking iron, General Refractories would come back here and with steam shovels, and they would take this silica sand, and they would take the silica sand and make silica bricks to wrap the inside of blast furnaces. This heavy clay industry would run this whole ridge all the way over to Ormenia. But you can see where they were mining back in here, all these different cuts, dips. Really interesting area. As we described earlier in the geology book, over here, it's not as deep as here. We're way down. And if you're at the top of the bank, we're pushing, what, 80 feet? Yeah. 80 feet down. And we're into this really precious clay that they were mining. So if you come up the grade, we're not as deep back here where they were mining iron ore. So they were going down about 20, 30 feet, getting surface iron off the top, and then they would get so deep right here, and from probably somewhere here down was all clay. And the underground work over here, it describes they went down in the mine shafts about 100 feet. So they were going down 100 feet under this layer of precious white clay. There was more iron ore. So they were actually going down about 100 feet to get underneath that clay to get iron ore. So what the miners did back then was incredible to supply the iron industry here in America. So interesting. Okay, this is one of our last looks at some of the mining here at Rebecca Furnace Mines. And as we evolved this way, this would have been owned by General Refractories. Later on, after the iron industry, they switched to mining the precious white clay back here, and they would make refractory bricks. So from here all the way down to Ormenia, they had this precious white clay that they mined heavily. Woodbury Clay Company was down that way. General Refractories was up here, so there was multiple companies back here taking this white clay. Here's some coke. You find a lot of just remnants of the iron industry here. This would have been the heat source for Rebecca Furnace. We just found it on a road back here. Okay, here's the geology book from about 1881 here over the Rebecca ore mines. And as you noticed in our video, there was 4 altogether. And this is one of the mining sites. And we talk in the video about, if you look at the very top here, the very close to the surface where they were mining, they were running into the iron ore. See, ore wash right here. So they would surface mine, dig down to where they got the ore. Then they would go so deep, and then they'd hit a large vein of white clay. Okay? Then underneath that, there'd be more iron ore right here. So these are all geological studies from them doing test holes and everything. So if you can see, there's a shaft put down here. There's a shaft here and here. And here's an actual mine shaft that they worked in. They would go down vertically. Okay, so they would mine the iron ore at the top, then they would hit the clay. They needed all the iron ore they could get at these sites. This heavy industry was needed during this time frame, so iron ore was a huge commodity that they needed to extract as much as they could. They were willing to do vertical shaft mines. Okay, they'd go down 100 feet or more, and then they would run into the vein of iron, and then they would do a horizontal mine. So they would go down to where they would get the iron ore, and then they would go horizontal, and they would extract all the iron ore, and then they would raise it up through the shaft with cable and hoist systems. But I mean, some incredible history there around these mines. And if you got to really understand the work that these men did during this heavy industrial revolution here in the Cove, we can appreciate this history. In this geology book here, and it said at this area, and still another shaft on the east side of the open cut was 80 feet deep. So they went down 80 feet deep through clay, and then they would drift eastward for 30 feet to find the ore rock. So that explains, you know, this shaft here would go down 80 feet, and then they would drift horizontally to get the iron ore. And talks about enormous quantities of iron ore have been mined here at the Rebecca mines, including both open work above the main mine, which would be open cut, and the underground works in all the shafts. Rebecca Furnace was supplied since 1817 almost entirely by iron ore from this mine. So that just goes to show that this quantity of iron ore was very, very generous to Rebecca Furnace. Brown hematite, good iron ore, about 65% pure iron. The Cove, the Morrison's Cove, had some of the best iron ore in Pennsylvania. We have a cut right here. Looks like they would have brought the mules and wagons down here, down into here. And we got an opening right here. We got a nice hole down in here into this hillside here, so we think there might have been a mine right here as well. Okay, about north of the main iron pit down here, the bigger one that we're heading to now. In our geology book, there's 3 deep mine shafts. Here's one, and the other one is up here, and another one is over here. These random holes in the ground are deep mines. They're vertical mine shafts that go straight down. I'll take you up here and show you one. Okay, you can see the top of this down here. And this pit is pretty sunken pretty good. I mean, if I stand down in there, it's about 6 foot. And you don't want to stand on that. You could possibly go down. These shafts were marked around 93 to 100 plus feet deep where they were going down. This is a vertical deep mine. They would go down 50 to 80 feet till they ran into that vein of iron ore. And then they would, when they found the vein of iron ore, if it was run this way or this way, they would go straight down and then horizontal and cut into the iron ore. Really dangerous work. This underground mining was a thing of the past, and they would have had like a ladder where they would go down. They would pull all the material out as they were digging. Then they probably had some kind of cable system where they would hoist out the iron ore in buckets. And a lot of hard work, but they were doing anything and everything to get this iron ore. And we found a cable over here that we'll stop back and look at. You can see a nice chunk of iron ore right here. We're directly above the main large ore cut here, the biggest one here. And here's another underground shaft. Went straight down. Say hi, Nathaniel.
Hi.
Check it out, Nathaniel. Here's a big piece of pig iron. They made the pig iron. They smelted the iron ore, and they made the pig iron. Oh, you found a lanternfly. You want to point out the pig iron?
Yeah.
Where is it? Right here?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Cove and our friends for watching, thank you. This is a piece of pig iron, and this is what they would make at the iron furnaces by smelting iron ore. So these iron bars would go to Pittsburgh and forges and foundries where they made products needed during the iron industry. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching. Can you say thank you, Nathaniel?
Thank you.